Hi, my name is John. Welcome back to my channel. This is Good Burger Reviews, and I'm about to do a brand new 2025 movie review. And the movie is called The Surrender.
I thought the end would be different somehow. Okay.
This movie is starring Colby Minifie, Kate Burton, Vaughn Armstrong, and Neil Sutherland. It is directed by Julia Max and just came on to Shudder. When the family patriarch dies, a grieving mother and daughter risk their lives to perform a brutal resurrection ritual and bring him back from the dead. Okay, so this one is another movie blend. And the two movies that I'd like to say it blends with is this is Practical Magic meets Pet Sematary with a Back to the Future moment. And what do I mean by all of that? So overall, it is mainly like a witch movie, like Practical Magic, and they are trying to bring someone back from the dead, just like Sandra Bullock and Nicole Kidman do in Practical Magic. Of course, that was more of a comedy, romantic comedy with a little spoof of magic and Halloween in it. This is definitely straight up horror. And when I say horror, very disturbing and unsettling horror. So when I say Practical Magic, I mean the unsettling and disturbing version of it. And then of course the whole Pet Sematary thing is they're bringing things back to life and it's not going to work out the way that they planned. And what I mean by a touch of the Back to the Future is there's like a little time loop that happens towards the end where this girl and all that they do, she journeys back into her past when her and her father are a child. So how does that all pull together? Does it make any sense? Is this anything that's going to be something worth a watch? Well, let's get into it. So Megan is our protagonist and she is co-starring with her mother, who is Barbara, and Robert is the dad, and he is basically on the verge of death. When I read the short little plot synopsis, I thought he was kind of going to die early on, but they really spend a lot of time with him alive. It takes a while before he dies, and I guess they're building up the characters in this part, and let me just tell you, this is not your average family. Though on some levels it does seem like that, but then on other levels they are definitely an interesting bunch of characters. And the mother and the daughter, I thought were going to have this kind of sweet mom-daughter relationship, and it's not really like that. They are toxic and toxic for each other. And I think a lot of it has to do with mom is quacky. She does all sorts of crazy things in this movie. And I guess because eventually the husband does die, Robert dies, and she's grieving and she's willing to do almost anything to hold on to him and bring him back. And daughter is like, in denial. She's like oblivious to things. She doesn't really see her parents the way they actually are, especially with her father. And she's been away. She's kind of taken off on the family and she's returned. And he's so sick. And that's like, so when I say that it's like unsettling, like in the whole front, and it's not just unsettling at the end, it's like unsettling right out the gate because Robert is dying and it's very morbid with him. He's laying in the bed and it always seems like he's on his last breath, but like he wakes up from a sleep and he screams out Barbara's name, Barbara, Barbara. And, he never wants daughter. He's clearly in a lot of pain and it's like, that he's going to die any minute. And Barbara, his wife, like she like has gotten used to him being sick, and like has developed this thing where she just is loves to be needed by him. She wants him to need her, and she kind of is controlling how everything goes, like when he gets his medication and all this. And you know, daughter coming home kind of messes with their routine. So I don't know the actresses who play mom and daughter in this well. I've never seen them in anything. But Barbara the mom literally looks like Elise Scanlon from Caddo Lake, except for clearly that actress is very young and this actress is much older. But like I said, there are flashbacks in this movie, and I thought to myself, before I even knew there was flashbacks, I'm like, wow, that older lady looks like that girl from Caddo Lake. And then to find out there was flashbacks, I thought to myself, wow, they should have really cast Elise Scanlon for that part, because these ladies are very, very, could have easily played, you know, future self and present self in any movie. And then Megan, the daughter, actually, I don't know, but she kind of looked like the combination of Anne Hathaway meets the girl from The Ring. I mean, she's young. She's just got very intense look to her. And I mean, most of the time, like, her eyes are bulging out of her head as it is, because she's constantly being put into like these horrific moments, and just the whole movie from start to finish gets very intense with up until he dies and then what they do after he dies. And you know, I do have to say that both of the leads in this, they do well with their acting. I think they really, some of the parts seem a little off, but overall I think for straight to streaming movie, it really was done well. And I was pleasantly surprised at how well this was filmed, executed, and put together. Now, with that being said, there's still some really interesting parts that I want to get into, that some of it may be positive and some of it may be negative, and I'm very mixed on multiple parts of this movie. And I think that is because there's so many extremes to this. There's some really funny comedy moments, which I don't know if it was intentional, but some of the stuff was comical. I think it was just the reactions to certain things, and then just the way the mom was. I mean, the mom was kind of insane with some of the things that she wanted to do, and I just thought on the other end of it, like daughter, like there's some suspension of disbelief with these characters, because like I just don't know how in the heck she could go along with her mom down this journey to the extent that they go down. So Barbara, she like really loves Frank, and that's why she's willing to go through all of this to try and bring him back. And a lot of her commentary on love was interesting. I mean, it seemed to be on point, like just how much she loved him, and she really was at that point giving some life lessons to her daughter about love and commitment. And I thought that was a neat little add to the movie, and this character who for the rest of the movie seems insane. So let me just say, this is definitely going to be a spoiler review. This one is a straight to streaming. According to what I looked up on IMDb, it has been out since March, but I haven't seen it anywhere until now. Maybe it was released on limited releases in the theaters or released in another country. But what I will say is that they are bickering a lot right up into the point to where Robert dies. And it's like, Barbara's clearly overwhelmed. She's exhausted from taking care of him. And she definitely needs like a night out and to get away from this. But, you know, like I said, she wanted to be needed, and she loved that her husband was needing her in this way. And they go over that, and, you know, when they talk. And then, daughter wants to help. Daughter wants to be involved. She's been away. She kind of neglected her parents. And now she's back and she wants, her dad's on the verge of death and she wants to be a part, and she's willing to take care of him for the night so that mom can go out. However, mom was hesitant, and then this is where it starts to get wild. So, like, mom, like, has, like, OCD. So, like, she goes out, but then she comes back, and daughter is kind of nonchalant. She's kind of a little bit like, let's do it, not going to follow everything to a T. And that's kind of where a lot of their conflict is. So what happens is Robert's on this dose of morphine, and they keep giving him morphine every time he wakes up and cries for pain. And he's supposed to be on a schedule for it. And while she's watching him, he wakes up, he's screaming for Barbara. Barbara's not there, it's daughter. She's like, it's me, it's Megan, I'm here, I can help you. And he's just kind of really panicking in pain, and just because Barbara's not there, it's even more worse. So, like, she looks at his schedule for morphine, and she's like, oh, next dose is supposed to be at 9, but it's only like 7:42. And she's like, oh, well, let's just kind of give it to him a little early this time. He needs it. So she gives him the morphine early, and he's fine. Well, mom comes home, and it must have been very close to 9 o'clock, because that's when he was scheduled for it. So daughter's in the bathroom on the phone with a friend, and mom comes home, and boom, straight to 9 p.m., gives him another dose of morphine. So he's 2 doses of morphine in the same night. And, like, when they realize that they've done this, they go into panic mode. Like, what'll happen? Like, we shouldn't have done this. He wasn't supposed to get that much morphine. Is he going to be okay? Are they going to kill him? And I thought, oh my gosh, are they actually going to kill him? But, like, this is where I start to wonder about, especially daughter's decisions. But, like, they don't do anything about it. Like, they just wait it out, and they just sleep near him and watch him. And lo and behold, he dies. And I thought, wow, they spent a long time getting to this point. And I thought like I said earlier, I thought he was going to die earlier, but they finally get to his death. And, as soon as he dies, it's like, mom is like, it's like she's already pre-planned this. It's like she's already had this idea already, because right out the gate, there was some stuff that was interesting about what was going on in this house and around Robert. So, like, for example, there was this little baggie of teeth that were under his bed, and then there was other little artifacts of, like, the Wiccan culture on the nightstand, and the picture was turned a certain way. And this was going down the road of, yeah, we're going to be witches to get him brought back. And, daughter's kind of interfering with that stuff, and mom doesn't like it. So then, soon as dad's dead, it's like, all right, I'm going to bring him back. And it's like, well, how are we going to do this, And this is another part where I thought a little bit of suspension of disbelief. Now, just because there was this, this story, overall, I felt like it was paced pretty well considering. And, like, because of how dramatic they were, and because of how intense everything that was going on was, I didn't even care that much that some of it was like, yeah, okay, daughter would never let mom get away with this. But they decide to rely on a stranger, someone that neither of them have ever met, to come over and be the center of this ritual that will bring him back. And I'm thinking about this whole bring him back thing, and I'm like, we have a movie coming up called Bring Her Back, and I'm like, I wonder how similar these movies are going to be. I guess we'll find out when I see Bring Her Back. But so when this strange man arrives at the house, just for a brief moment when he's arriving, it reminded me of when Jason Miller in The Exorcist arrives at Ellen Burstyn's house, the McNeil house. He kind of had like a dark outfit. Can't remember if he had like that hat. I think the hat was there. I think that's what made me think of The Exorcist. And it was just like there was a Back to the Future moment, and there's a Substance moment in this movie. There's a little Exorcist moment. This is the way this guy arrives.
And daughter's having trouble going along with this. Like I'd said, there was little suspension of disbelief with what daughter does throughout this movie. But what kind of calms her down is dad, who's only been dead a day, comes to visit her as a ghost. And it was kind of a comical scene because, like, she's so casual with him when he first shows up. There was, like, no shock factor, and he's so, like, well put together and alive, like he was probably right before he got sick. But every time she's kind of panicking about this stuff, the ghost of her dad shows up and kind of calms her down.
When the man shows up that is the center of this ritual, first of all, he's much older. He's closer to mom's age. Very gruff, big beard. Kind of looks like a character right out of Lord of the Rings. He comes in and he's like the silent guy, right? He barely says anything. It's not like, hey, hi, I'm John. How are you? Nice to meet you. No small talk. They just get straight into the weirdness. I mean, this guy comes in and he's sniffing them like a beagle at the airport looking for drugs. I just like, and then like first he goes after mom, like he's very close to mom, and then he gets to daughter, and like he's like nose to nose with daughter, and like just like, and she's like, mom, and mom's just like, it's fine, just let him sniff you, it's fine. But like, and this was like, it was very unsettling but comical at the same time. I like, I couldn't like. It just was, I was laughing, but I was also scared at the same time because I can tell you what, this movie is scary. Like, it doesn't take, I mean, I don't get scared easily in a lot of typical movies that are scary or labeled as horror or thriller, but I was getting nervous because I didn't know where this was going. It wasn't extremely predictable, especially in the third act. And this guy is just, I couldn't figure him out. Like he's sniffing him, then he's like creepy man, you know. Then they go into the main room and it's like gonna be a ritual, and they've got to bring his dead body into the center of a circle. Of course, witches love their circles with the little ashes and all this stuff. And I mean, it was still done pretty neat, but like it was also bizarre in some aspects. For example, like he's got to be naked for the ritual, and like daughter's like, no, not looking. Like her eyes are up, and she's like throwing a towel over his chunk and stuff. I'm like, what the heck's going on here? Why has he got to be naked? But like, you know, I mean, I guess maybe in these types of things it needs to be like. Another thing that I thought was unbelievable besides that was like they had to burn everything he owned, right? And this is crucial to what happens in the end. They have to burn all this stuff. So they burn all this stuff, and then there was this little picture of him with with daughter, and when they're young, and it's like an emotional thing. Daughter doesn't want to part with the picture, but you know, they're gonna burn everything. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, but if one of my parents passed away, and the other parent wanted to do something this crazy, and then burn all the other parents' stuff, I just don't think I could buy into that. But you know, I wasn't raised by witches, so like I don't know what I would do. Maybe daughter kind of knows how mom is. However, the ritual starts, right? And I'll tell you what, like this movie definitely has all the haunts, all the traditional spooks. There's a few jump scares in here and everything. The jump scares got me. This whole thing with the mirror and these eyes, and she's looking in the mirror and there's a set of eyes and he's not there, and then she goes away. She thinks, oh, I got rid of whatever that was, there's nothing there, and she goes back and then there's like 10 eyes in the mirror. I'm like, holy crap. She throws a blanket over the mirror. That scene was awesome. But then we get to the ritual scene and like everything's just getting like, all right, the whole surrendering thing. Like there's this whole part of it is like we have to surrender this and surrender that and surrender a third thing, and then we're gonna go into an alternate dimension and then come back. And then I start getting poltergeist vibes. I'm like, oh, we're going to the other side to get him, Craig Nelson and Joe Beth Williams did in Poltergeist to get Carol Ann brought back from the other side. But it kind of had that similar feel. And I thought, oh, because up until this point, there wasn't much like special effects needed. It was all just kind of bumps and noises and scary dialogue and just intense scenes. But now I'm thinking if they're going to cross over to some other dimension, there's going to be like, what's this going to be like? Is it going to be totally CGI or is it going to be really rough? And I was really thinking, oh God, this could go wrong. And actually, I liked it. I mean, there was CGI for some of this stuff, but like overall, it was very minimal on that. It was very like the lights, the shadows, the way everything is, just the camera work. When they go to the other side to try and, I guess they have to cross into this other dimension or whatever, wherever they go, and they're gonna call out to his soul and get him brought. And then when all three of them in the circle, they do like these levels of surrender, and then they get back. Well, here's the other thing. The whole leveling, the way they surrender to each level of this was another very unsettling part. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, they start eating this random stuff that was in a bag that he unraveled, like the same type of bag that had the teeth under the bed. And then he slices their fingers off, and I'm like, oh, no. Now, daughter's definitely up to, 100 on this, but, like, still is going through with all these levels. And then they finally, they finally find him in this other world, but it's like, is it him or is it another thing? And then once they were, I'd said maybe it was kind of be like Poltergeist, but it gave me more of an Insidious vibe then because of the way these creatures were that were on the other side of the world. And they're all these like naked souls walking around. And it was very interesting when they first came. It was very intense. They just show up on one side and then they cross past the circle and they walk away, and it's like all these naked butts going into the darkness, and I'm like, why do I need to see like 10 cracks going away? But I mean, that made me laugh, but it was still, again, with the I'm laughing but nervous at the same time, and it's still in that tenseness. And then somehow mom tries to lure the ghost of dad, but he's not dad. It's not dad. It's clearly like a demon or something else. And he's like nibbling on something. And I guess he's nibbling on the guy who, mysterious guy who doesn't say much, who is running the ritual. He's like eating him. They don't really, it's not super gory in that part, like the eating part. But this part, and there was a little hint of this in the opener. It opens at this with this visual of some creature. Well, it was a man, but he was like all cut up and he's eating something. But the way he sliced up, it reminded me of Demi Moore in The Substance. If you remember, like her whole body almost cuts open like a zipper bag for a coat bag, and her little younger version comes out of her backside, if you guys remember that from The Substance. Well, he kind of had the same thing going on. His body is like slit down the back in this big way, like a zipper bag, and something does come out of it. And in fact, it was even more disturbing, more unsettling than the way it happened in The Substance, because it was like all these little hands just start coming out, and it's like more than one thing comes out of him, and that was freaky. And he like drags her off, and then she's gone. Now daughter's left alone in this circle, which, by the way, I did skip over the fact that the strange guy had also died, because I forgot to mention this part as well. Daughter didn't follow all the rules when doing this ritual. And everything was going wrong at one point, and this guy dies, and all these demons are there. The guy with the beard, the silent guy, he's dead now too. He's getting eaten up by some demon, and it's like, why? And then all of a sudden, Girlie pulls out the picture. She never burned it, And mom's like, what? What did you do? Now everything's messed up. No wonder everything's falling apart. And it's like she was holding onto the picture of him. And then they quick try to burn it because these demons are coming. And it's like, it was pretty intense. It was pretty intense. But they still burn it, but then everything's still screwed up. And they're trying to figure it out. Now mom gets taken. Now daughter's left alone. And then this is where we already had a few flashbacks earlier on, like to the Megan's childhood. But now it's like she travels into this dimension where she's in the past with them. And that's where I said this little Back to the Future moment. Because she's literally in the past and she's trying to figure out a way, how do I get back to the future? Because, as much as she loved being near the younger version of her dad, but it's not where she's not supposed to be. And I kept thinking, is this real? Is this all an illusion, Because it was kind of like a symmetrical echo of the scene from earlier flashback, but something was different about it. This movie, what I'm going to say about it is I'm impressed overall. Even though I'm mixed about some of it, it's just the way it kept me unsettled. I think that's what impresses me, because it takes a lot to get me unsettled. I've watched a lot of movies, and I'm not talking about because I'm watching like Crack Bones or anything, because that'll always get me no matter how it's done, even when it's done in a funny sense, like when I watch those YouTube clips or those little fast TikTok clips of people cracking and stuff and tripping and breaking bones and stuff. I just, that'll always unsettle me, but the way this was unsettling was refreshing. So I'm going to get down to business on this one, because I'm going to not tell the way ending, because I do think this movie, even though I spoiled a lot of it, is worth the watch. It's streaming on Shudder, and I'm giving it a good burger. At the end of the day, I was engaged, entertained, took me for a loop, done well. It was just some really weird, quirky parts where I was like, what the heck am I watching? And the whole suspension of disbelief otherwise. But at the end of the day, this one was decent. Worth a watch, so go ahead and stream it. Remember to please like, subscribe, tap the notification bell, all that jazz, and stay scared, and definitely of the surrender.